Lucy Letby, serial killer. Why did she kill? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. You will have been enlightened by my detailed exploration of the evidence surrounding Lucy Letby, which culminated in yesterday's final analysis as to what she is. If you haven't, for some reason, addressed that already, I would urge you to do so, because not only is it fascinating and enlightening, but it'll help you understand so much more about the categorization and classification of people, particularly with regard to the issues of narcissism and psychopathy. It is a thorough analysis, taking in vast amounts of evidence and looking at that evidence in an objective, rational, and constructive fashion. Go and have a look at the comments on the conclusion video to see the impact that it has had on people if you've not already watched it. For those of you who have, you'll be aware of my conclusion. I established that Lucy Letby is a narcissist with a sadistic streak who also has psychopathic tendencies. I also explained how she came to be that narcissist. This happened because one of her parents, possibly both, is a narcissist themselves, and therefore they have passed their genetic predisposition on to Lucy Letby, meaning she has the potential to become one. I explained that the smothering that she has experienced during her childhood, that during those formative years, could only have come from a narcissist in one or both of her parents. She then experienced a lack of control environment where she wasn't able to make decisions. Everything was done for her, or she was told, in a way, the kind of helicoptering parents that you sometimes hear about. Her parents instructed her, rode into battle for her, did whatever was required for her, resulting in her never having any sense of control over her own life. The melding of her genetic predisposition received from one or both of her parents with this lack of control environment created a narcissist. By understanding what she is, we can now answer that fundamental decision, or rather fundamental question, which is, why did she kill? What drove Lucy Letby to harm and murder babies? What was it that caused her to behave this way? As a narcissist, Lucy Letby, either consciously or subconsciously, dependent on whether she is an aware narcissist or an unaware narcissist, something I'll be addressing on another occasion, she sees the world through a prism to cause her to seek the prime aims. This is what governs everything that she does in relation to other people or with regard to a potential interaction with other people. So to give you an example, if I pour myself a glass of delicious Voss mineral water, there's nobody else around. Therefore, the prime aims are not applicable. I poured myself a drink because I was thirsty. But let us say my girlfriend has returned from going jogging. She's perspiring and looks thirsty. When I pour her a glass of Voss mineral water, I haven't done that because I'm kind. Remember, I'm a narcissistic psychopath. I've done it to control her because she thanks me. Thank you, HG, for that drink. And that shows that she's under control, and it provides me with some fuel from her. Conversely, I might stand there in front of her and glug the entire bottle, leaving her exasperated and upset, which also provides me with fuel, but of a negative nature. The narcissist, when interacting with other people, is always governed by the pursuit of one or more of the prime aims. It isn't because the narcissist is kind. It isn't because the narcissist is fun. It isn't because the narcissist is loving or hateful. Those are just mechanisms to cause the narcissist to get to the prime aims. The prime aims are control, fuel, character traits, and residual benefits. For Lucy Letby, when she went on a night out with her friends, she needed to control them. Because she operated a facade of being a kind and decent person, her narcissism instructed her to be fun, to be kind, to be interesting. And thus, by doing that, this enabled her to control the people in her friendship group. They responded to her, providing her with fuel, and they became part of the facade also, which was a residual benefit. When she spoke to a doctor and demonstrated something that she had done, and he thanked and praised her for it, that showed the doctor was under control and provided her with fuel. When she went in a shop to buy a chocolate bar, when the shopkeeper thanked her for purchasing it, that showed the shopkeeper, a tertiary source, was under control and also provided her with fuel, and she gained the residual benefit of a chocolate bar. Each and every time the narcissist has that interaction, it's in the pursuit of one or more of the prime aims. Now, there is a myriad of ways the narcissism drives the narcissist to secure the prime aims, and it does so by making the narcissist think a particular way and feel a particular way. So it's the same with Lucy Letby. Her narcissism made her think in a particular way and feel in a particular way to drive her to get to the prime aims. So an example of this might be a narcissist and his girlfriend go into a bar. She says, "I'll go and get the beers in." When she says that, she's showing she's under control because she's doing something for the narcissist and she's giving him fuel. He goes and gets a table. He looks across and sees her at the bar. She's waiting to order the drinks. She's still doing something for him, thus she's under control. He then notices that she is talking to a man. She is now no longer doing something for the narcissist, and this is a threat to control. The narcissism needs to motivate that narcissist to get control over his girlfriend once again. And therefore, what it will do is alter the narrative, going through the distortion field that surrounds the narcissist, to suggest to the narcissist that his girlfriend is flirting with this man. She isn't. It's actually a colleague, and she's just saying hello and talking to him. But if the narcissist just thought, oh, she's just talking to a colleague, that's okay, he's not getting her under control because her attention must be on him. And therefore, when she returns to the table, he says, "So what was all that about then?" An immediate question and provocation. "What are you talking about?" she asks. She's threatening his control with the question. "Oh, you know full well," he says, "flirting with that man." The accusation of flirtation is based upon his perception through his prism of the narcissism. It makes him believe that she was flirting even though she was not. Because by believing that she was flirting, he's jealous of losing his girlfriend and therefore is motivated to make this false accusation, although he believes it. If she were to respond by saying, "Oh no, gosh, I wasn't flirting with him, that's John from the office. Oh no, he's not my kind, it's you that I love. Oh, seriously, no. She's demonstrating she's under control and providing him with fuel, and thus the problem has been solved. And so similarly, with Lucy Letby, whenever she faced a threat to her control, her narcissism would motivate her in a particular way to ensure that she kept control of people, got control of people, and draw fuel from them. So, for instance, with her friends, it did this by causing her to be kind to them, that she was there with her Mary Poppins backpack of various remedies that she could dole out, and why so many people thought that she was a lovely person. Because of the type of narcissist that she is, her narcissism deemed that the creation of a facade by treating friends, colleagues, and neighbours, etc., in a nice manner was an effective way of controlling them. Some narcissists might do it through sex. Some narcissists might do it through the application of physical violence. There's lots of different ways that it can be done. She used extensively benign manipulations, flattery, kindness, etc., with regard to these secondary source friends, colleagues. In some instances, she was haughty and dismissive, where she was upbraiding a colleague who had made a mistake, and sometimes the air of superiority was demonstrated. As I explained in the conclusion video, I am of the firm belief that she engaged in more malign behaviours with regard to her parents, but the world doesn't know about those because they took place behind closed doors, and neither Lucy Letby nor her parents have spoken about them. Thus, it's important to understand that when it comes to dealing with other people, Lucy Letby is driven by the demands of her narcissism, each and every time. What you might think was her being kind to her friend, if you were to sort of peel it back and look underneath the bonnet, you would see direct assertion of control by flattery, drawing of fuel. When she was helping a colleague at work, on the face of it, it looks like she's being helpful. Peel that back. Underneath it will say direct assertion of control by providing assistance to colleague, also drawing fuel by virtue of their response. She doesn't do something just because she's being kind. She does it because it enables her to get to the prime aims. And there is no part-time nature in relation to her. Everything, I repeat, everything that she does when it comes to another person is governed by the prime aims. It's an absolute rule. So then we come to the fundamental question of why then did she start murdering babies? What triggered this? Some people have suggested that it was a desire for attention, which is partially correct because attention is fuel. And thus her narcissism deemed that it was appropriate for her to harm children because this would provoke a response from staff, from colleagues, from the parents. And because she would have the knowledge that she caused it, their responses gave her fuel. It validated her existence. It made her feel important. Some people have suggested that she had a God complex, that in essence that she was the arbiter of life and death. Although she had that as part of her thinking, it's not a separate condition in itself in this instance. It's her narcissism that drove her to behave as if she were a god, causing her to believe that she had the power of life and death over people. But it is not a separate condition of itself, but a manifestation of her narcissism. Some people have suggested that there's a blue code addiction. Blue code being a situation where there is an occurrence which requires an emergency response in a hospital, and that an individual gets off in causing those blue code situations because it allows them to be important. By creating a scene, they then feel important because they're able to become involved in doing something about it. Again, it isn't a separate instance for Lucy Letby of it being a blue code addiction, but rather the creation of drama and then dealing with it, being both fire starter and fire extinguisher, is again a manifestation of her narcissism. So in terms of why did she start murdering babies, it was because her narcissism demanded it. What made her kill was that killing was a method of getting to the prime aims. For some narcissists, it's having sex with somebody. For some narcissists, it might be baking somebody a chocolate cake. For some narcissists, it might be punching somebody in the head. For some narcissists, it might be doling out a pity play to make people react to them. There are lots of different ways that it can happen. But with Lucy Letby, her narcissism dictated that in order to get control over the baby, over staff, over the doctor that she was having an affair with, over the parents, namely anybody who was on her radar at that moment in time, that in order to get control over them and nullify any threat to control that they posed, and to get fuel from them, harming babies was a legitimate route to getting those things. Her narcissism dictated that killing babies allowed her to get control and fuel. But there's more to it than just that. Lucy Letby feared she couldn't marry, that she would never marry. This, of course, was compounded by the fact that she was having a relationship with a married doctor. He was somebody else's. I do not believe that this was just a platonic relationship. I think that it was both an emotional and physical relationship, but again, both parties, for obvious reasons, have not admitted to the physical side of things. She wanted that doctor, she could not have him, and that compounded her fear that she would not marry and that she would not have a family. She wanted that doctor. What did he have? He had a marriage. He had a family. She wanted those things, but she couldn't have them with him because he already had them with somebody else. And therefore, this fear of not being married and not having a family was actually compounded by the nature of the relationship she was having with this doctor. It brought it into stark focus that she was not getting these things. She had these fears which were repeated threats to her control, quite possibly on a daily basis. And therefore, each and every time she was reminded by something else of the fact that she was not married, that she didn't have a family, this resulted in a deep-seated threat to her control. Now, what would remind her of those failings on her part? Naturally, the fact that she couldn't have the doctor. That was a reminder. But also, the very people that she was meant to be there helping. She saw married parents, parents in relationships, happy people. They got something that she hadn't. They, in her world, were rubbing her face in it by turning up at her neonatal ward. Dickie and Dolly, in their relationship, might as well have been walking up to Lucy Letby, as seen through her prism, and saying, "Hello, loser. You're a complete singleton, aren't you? Look at us. We have a perfect relationship and you don't have one. That makes you a loser. That makes you weak. That makes you unimportant. Nah. Loser Lucy Letby." That would be how her narcissism would interpret it, as if they were mocking her for this deficiency. Of course, they weren't, but her narcissism would interpret it that way. Remember how, in the instance of the example I gave you about the narcissist in the bar, that it interpreted his innocent girlfriend's behaviours as flirtation. Lucy Letby's narcissism, in order to motivate her, would tell her that these people were mocking her, that was not fair that they got a relationship, but it was worse. She wanted a family, but she did not have that. She was dealing with people who had just started their families or were extending their families because they had children. And thus, the very environment that she worked in on a daily basis was screaming at her, "You're not getting married. You've not got kids. You've not got a family. You're not with somebody." And so her narcissism recognized that this created a threat to control because it made her life less than complete. Her narcissism ensured that she portrayed this facade to the outside world of being kind, of being compassionate, of being a gentle soul, the dutiful daughter who was industrious in her job, caring for and saving babies. What an absolutely wonderful and perfect human being she is. But there were flaws. There was no significant other. The one that she wanted was with somebody else, and she couldn't get hold of him, not to the extent that she wanted. And furthermore, she didn't have that significant other or the family. And thus there were two huge gaps in what she would have viewed as the perfect existence. And the presence of those two huge gaps was a massive threat to control. And she was reminded of her deficiencies, if you will, every time she stepped into that neonatal ward, because she saw couples and children, the two things that she didn't have. And therefore, her narcissism was screaming at her, you must do something about these threats to control. You must nullify them with immediate action. And her narcissism saw there were two routes to do this, linked to her job. She could harm the babies and then be involved in saving them, which would garner positive responses for her involvement and prompt action. Or she could kill the babies, and the subsequent grief that would come from it would reinforce her importance, allow her the sensation of control, and provide her with fuel. Thus, her narcissism selected as the means of nullifying the threat to control that was posed by the daily reminder of the fact that she did not have a marriage and did not have a family, by causing her to lash out at the people who had those things by killing their children. Her world was incomplete. Her narcissism decided that she would destroy their world also. If I can't have it, you can't have it too. Although she started to commence these crimes in 2015, I remain firmly of the view that evidence will be uncovered that she commenced these crimes in 2012, namely when she first started as a nurse, because that was when she was experiencing the reminders of her deficiencies, and as a consequence of being on that neonatal ward, she was confronted by the threats to control, and she had to do something about it. It might be initially that she would just do actions such as making the child cry so that it provoked a response. It might be, as time went on, she did something that made them uncomfortable so that there was a response, but she might not have initially have gone so far as to kill straight away. And that's why she remained undetected at that earlier stage. It may well be the case that she harmed those babies in some shape or form, but there was no earlier link made. And now, by revisiting this through the investigation, they will be able to find that she did. It seems to me that given that the trigger was the presence of people that reminded her of the deficiencies that she had, as a matter of logic, she would have started in a similar vein back in 2012 to nullify the threat to control by doling out harm to the babies. Her absence of emotional empathy, her sense of entitlement to behave this way, her lack of accountability accordingly aided her in carrying out these abhorrent actions. She took a delight in their suffering because it made her feel better. The anxiety that she experienced as a consequence of the threat to control just ebbed away when she got the responses in relation to what she had done. When she saw the grief on Facebook posted by these parents when she checked at a later date, it soothed her troubled soul, in effect. It silenced the mocking of the creature. The chasm that rages in the middle of her recedes as the fuel fills up from the responses of people. She had a nagging itch that she needed to make go away. She had a sense of impending doom and anxiety, all generated by this absence of control, which had been caused by the presence of people having the very things that she wanted but that she did not. And since that created a threat to control, it triggered her, through her narcissism, to need to nullify that, and her narcissism selected the means of killing children and harming children as that method to get what she needed, control, to nullify the threat to control, and to draw fuel. In another world, Lucy Letby could have obtained control by being just a diligent nurse the whole time, possibly upbraiding colleagues to cause them to respond, and never harm any of her charges. It does not follow that just because somebody is a narcissist, they're going to start killing babies. There are other means for the narcissist to get to that control. But in this instance, the nature of Lucy Letby, because of her psychopathic tendencies and her sadism, came together with her narcissism and basically surveyed the land, if you will, and thought, we have a threat to control, we need to get her to do something to nullify that threat to control. The threat to control is caused by the presence of families and married couples. Let's burn down their world. Let's get Lucy to kill their children. And thus she did. With no emotional empathy to hamper her, no sense of remorse or guilt, she was free to do that. And in so doing, that enabled her, by killing children, to get the control that her narcissism craved, to maintain control, and to receive fuel by way of people's responses. Lucy Letby killed because she was a narcissist. Lucy Letby killed because she needed control. Lucy Letby killed because there was a threat to her control posed by the fact that she didn't have a family and she wasn't married. Lucy Letby was reminded of that deficiency on a near daily basis. And in order to do something about it, it meant that her narcissism moved her to take away the lives of children, to give her that sense of control, to burn down the world of others to make her situation better, and for her to receive the lifeline that is fuel that the narcissist has as their lifeblood. Lucy Letby killed because she was a narcissist. Lucy Letby killed because her narcissism deemed that it was appropriate to kill to get control and fuel. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.